Hey there, y'all. Eric, our functional farmhouse, coming at you today. Retired master mechanic thoughts number 2. And I had a couple comments on the first video, and obviously, I'm a small channel. I don't get a lot, but I, I enjoy the mental stimulation because, it's easy to be behind a keyboard and whatnot. And I'm putting myself out there, obviously, naturally, and my last video had nothing to do with the fact that I was doing the transmission. That was just what I was doing. I wasn't belly aching, griping, complaining, or anything else about that. And generated some interesting comments. So today, I had mentioned when I did the engine in the BMW, I cheaped out and I bought a Chinese set of PCV hoses. I just got my BMW ones from getbmwparts.com. This is not sponsored. They were the cheapest I could find with the soonest fulfillment. I saved a significant amount of money over my local BMW dealership. Could have had them done. Anyway, it had poor fitment on bank 2 on the intake air boot, and had a intermittent vacuum leak that was giving me a P0174 bank 2 lean at idle code was the data. So why am I here? Why am I doing this? Who the shit is Eric? And why do I have any authority to talk about what it is I'm talking about? So I grew up into an auto repair business. My parents own one. My dad fell into it. When he was young, he fixed all the family's cars, and he was good at it. And he found out he can make money doing it, and a couple of things fell in. And we ended up, when I was 10, they opened up a 5,000 square foot shop after their mobile corporate location. Mobile back in the day used to have repair shops at all their gas stations. They were called service stations. And Mobile Corporate said, we're cutting this. We're going to remodel this location, and we're ditching the service station. So y'all got to go. And so trying to find a industrial area in coastal Del Mar at the time in California, there were very few options. And being in and under the realm of the California Coastal Commission and whatnot. Anyway, I grew up in the business, and I also am very good at doing this. And there's a disconnect in the chain when you're really good at something and it's not your passion. If you know, you know. And that was not my passion. I grew up, when I was in high school, I was making as much money as my teachers were my senior year. One of the service writers took a vacation, and my parents found out that he and 2 of the other mechanics were doing a lot of cash stuff under the table for folks. And they fired him when he came back, and those guys left, and I had to step in my senior year. I had already done a bunch of summer school, so I only had a half day anyway, but I was working 45, 50 hours a week, 6 days a week to help the family business stay afloat. Now, we were a high-end, non-exotic, independent repair shop, and we serviced folks in Rancho Santa Fe, Del Mar, La Jolla, and the surrounding industrial biotech areas of Torrey Pines and Sombrero Valley. And those types of folks, our type of client, was someone who was well off. Husband, wife drive nice stuff. The nanny's got a car. They don't want to go to 5 different dealerships. They want one hub that could take care of them. So I was thinking, and this is an offhand list, I'm probably going to miss some in no particular order. I've worked on basically every globally known and distributed car brand there is, I think. And in no particular order: Packard, I'm going to start with American, AMC, Eagle, Chrysler, Dodge, Plymouth, Jeep, Ram, Ford, Lincoln, Mercury, GM, Cadillac, Pontiac, Buick, Chevrolet, Jaguar, Triumph, MG, Alfa Romeo DeLorean Motor Company. I did a clutch in one of those. That wasn't just some oil change. Pretty much all the Korean, Kia, Hyundai, Daewoo, Mazda, Datsun, Nissan, Infiniti, Toyota, Lexus, Mitsubishi, Honda Acura, first gen Acura NSX. I will never forget that 6-speed transmission is, in my mind, one of the smoothing, shifting, and best overall driver cars I've ever even been in. I've done it. I've worked on a lot of vehicles, on a lot of brands and a lot of models. And that's where I'm coming from with 51,000 real in the shop repair hours in my limited tenure. And I would have worked on more and done more. Yeah, I've worked on a Porsche Gambala, Ferrari. The only exotics I have not done were Lamborghini and Bentley. I've done Rolls-Royce. The service center for the dealership in San Diego at that time was Symbolic Motor Cars. And they did Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Lamborghini, Ferrari, and they were right across the street from us. So those customers who had those took most of those there. But I've still been... I remember when Motor Trend had the Ferrari 599 GTB was on the cover of that magazine. My dumbass was behind the wheel of one of those for a smog, for an out-of-state California required smog at that time, which they had to, they were charging fees that they had to roll back. So just to give a little more curriculum vitae of my experience, and one of the other comments was I needed more factory training. Oh yeah, BMW, Mini, Mercedes, Porsche. There's so many I can't even keep track. I was going to make a list, but I didn't want to be hokey. If you've ever had to do a flex joint at the front end of a 944 Porsche torque tube without taking the transmission out, there's a circlip in between that and the flywheel. You can get that. It's not easy, but it's doable. And so I'm putting this new PCV hose on, gonna take care of this vacuum leak, and getting to the point of this video is, I had mentioned ASE. I like most education and certification programs, those are the beginning of your path. Those are not the end. And I feel as, I don't want to say flawed, but even ASE Master and L1 is just scratching the surface. It's proving bare minimum competency, your ability to read and reason. It's proving that. So if you can accomplish those goals, you are on a path to understanding how vehicles work. It's not the end, it's the beginning. And I've done a lot of different trainings on a lot of different car makes and models, independent, factory, and those are all the beginning. Now, I'm not going to say I've done every job on every car make that I listed, because I haven't. But those were all repairs. That was all mechanical work. That wasn't a lube tech checking the air in the tires. I was doing real work. That Porsche Gambala came in, and that was a kick in the pants to drive. It got towed in, no start. Another exotic shop couldn't figure it out, and I got it in 10 minutes. Take it or leave it. Same thing, Ferrari 308 back in the day, and Testarossa had horrible, they were built so poorly. And those were the 80s kid dream cars, right? And then you see one through these eyes, and you're just like, to quote John Bravo, what a piece of shit. And, they just, they lost a lot of luster for me. And, but I like my cars. And so that's why I have a twin turbo V8 with variable exhaust and intake cam timing. This has Valvetronic on the intake cams. It's an elaborate engine, and this thing, it has almost peak torque from 1800 RPM through the entire range. It is a beast. It is smooth. The ZF8 transmission is a monster, and the programming they have, BMW does, their driving experience is second to Porsche. It's very good. At a lower entry price. So, you know, where do you start? Where would you go to a trade school? You know, I know I'm not going to mention any names. I don't want to get in trouble for anything. There's a pretty main one. I had looked into doing a trade school for a hobby of mine, and after, it was a very extensive deal. It was a gunsmithing school in Montana, and you had to acquire at least 100 different firearms to work on. Now, me being in California would have a very hard time, and then you have to transport those and go out for a year. And I was looking more into the course, and while those are relevant to that field, it wasn't necessarily relevant. What I wanted to learn was maybe 2 or 3 weeks of a year, a literal year-long scope of engagement for that educational program. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to learn a lot, but a lot of it's not applicable to me. You know, I wasn't going to start a business. I wasn't going to try to be fixing side-by-side shotguns or over-unders. I didn't want any of that. But there was a huge part of single shot. Anyway, so I just also found out that this engine in this car, BMW, there was a lawsuit. BMW has class action lawsuits on almost every vehicle model they make. When I had my E46 M3, which was gorgeous, I bought it at the dip in 2009 from a guy in Beverly Hills who was getting soaked, and he had to get rid of the car. The only downside was this thing was totally sandblasted by LA traffic. Anyway, I get that car, and there was a lawsuit, class action lawsuit on the rear subframe. I had a 2004, so it was the second, it wasn't a part of the rod bearing recall, but there was a lawsuit for the rear subframe mounts on the pan. I missed a claim on that by like 2 weeks. I was in the class, but I couldn't claim it. So on the X5, there was a class action called the Isley judgment, and this engine was already replaced during a CPO period right as that was coming in. So I didn't have to pay for it. And retail, they did about $45,000 worth of work. So in that settlement, BMW subsidized this engine to the tune of almost $25,000 below their list. It was $29,995, and then it dropped down to $5,000. I paid $5,100 for this engine without taxes and core fee, and without another 8 or 9, well, with the accident, you know, another $10,000 in parts. I just looked up today, I was on a BMW page, and someone was saying, oh yeah, BMW changed the pricing. Well, this engine now is $27,991, not subsidized. I would not have fixed this car at that price. I'd look for a used one. Right now, these V8s with my feature set are still used at this, yet 11 years old, are still in the 35 to 40 range. I don't know that I'd spend 35 my cost to keep this car, but I can do it, and I'm doing it, and so I can save the money and keep the car that I like. Now, what do people do? Are you a mechanic? Are you handy? I like accomplishing goals, and one of my favorite things about this business was the immediate return on investment, where someone, cataclysmic failure, car comes in, you fix it, road test it, get it back to the customer immediately. It's great. And my current business, I am now a real estate broker, and this is not a solicitation, but I will give my corporate officer license number, 0194-6868, California Department of Real Estate. I work with folks sometimes up to 2 years before I get compensated, and it's a whole different thing when you're going from charging by the 10th and fighting for every 10th to getting compensated 3, 6, 12, 18, 24 months. It's a different ball game. It's one that allows me to do this, make these videos and share with y'all. And I enjoy seeing what some of y'all are doing. So all's not lost. If you feel like you're stuck out there, you're in a shop or dealer that just doesn't feel right, I'm not going to promise things I can't promise, but I can almost guarantee that there is a way to transition somewhere different where you can at least be at the same, if not a little better. And there might be a dwell period. My dwell was about a year. I had a small IRA I cashed out. I had to pay the penalties. That got me through 6 months. I sold that M3. It was an SMG. I'd already replaced the pump twice. It was going to need another $5,000 in work. I'd already spent over 20 grand and parts at my shop cost, not including labor, during my 5-year ownership. And some people might say that's crazy. I like having clean cars that hopefully don't break down. That SMG, that E46 M3 was towed more than every vehicle I've ever owned combined since. I still loved it. I wish it was a slick top. It was a great car. It fit all of my needs. But I wish I kept my E30 BMW that I sold when I acquired that. But I couldn't keep too many vehicles at that time. So, rambling thoughts for today. There it is, y'all. What do you think? Beat me up. Tell me I need more training. Sure. There's nothing you can say to me I haven't said to myself. Tongue in cheek. But anyway, I'm going to get Mama's car back on the road. I got the office car fixed. That transmission, I was a little nervous. The one I had, we acquired that vehicle at 90,000 miles, almost exactly. And the third gear synchro was out hard then. Gosh, and that was some 15 plus years ago. And it has 126 now. And so this new transmission, not having a grind going into third, is amazing for a longer mile transmission. There's no bearing noise, synchros all work. It's awesome. So what are you working on? What do you want to work on? I want to work on, I want to buy, I want to get, if this Focus breaks down, I want a BMW E46 wagon is the car I want. I like the E46. I think it's classic. I have seen around here one converted to an M3 spec that was just, oh man, she was clean. And dealing with the Bureau of Automotive Repair and having it smog legal, I've done that. I'm not going to be the guy to ask for a spoof smog because that's called clean piping and that's a felony. I'm not going to be the guy to do that. So I not necessarily want the 2.5 or even the 2.3 in one of those, but if I can find one that is white or silver, I would prefer a black interior. So almost everyone in all of Southern California that's come up has a tan interior, and it is beat. They are beat. So there it is, y'all. Thoughts for today. I wasn't planning to make a video so soon, but I think this is a relevant topic. There's a good cohort of us who have moved on, and I think we can cheer on the guys and gals out there who want to move on. And it's possible. You might not feel it's possible right now, but you know, here for moral support. You want a message? I'm here, and see y'all in the next one.